So we're here to talk about today cabaret in Berlin. My name's Jack Woodhead. We're all friends. I'm here today with three celebrities, people that work in the cabaret scene as organizers, as singers, as hosts, as performers. And we all, I think, have very different ideas of maybe what cabaret is. For me, it's something I just call my job. I'm a cabaret performer. I don't know if I'm going to put that label on any of you because you might have a different idea of it. But I was asked today to think of three people that could come on board with what I understood my life of Berlin cabaret was. And you three all came to my mind. And we'll talk about why, and you're allowed to disagree. But in my head, we all live in Berlin, and we all make our living in the genre of cabaret. And just so you all know, we've basically known each other on and off for about 10 years, really. And just so people know, we have Marta Carter.
Hello there.
We have Elsa Edelstedt.
Hello.
And Le Postro.
Hello.
And you guys might know my story, but basically, I'll start. For me, as you know, I'm from Manchester, and I studied classical piano, and at the weekends, I studied musical theatre. And I was very good at classical piano, and I was also good at musical theatre. And I wanted to be a performer. And when I looked at drama schools at 18, it was either you study musical theatre or you study piano. It wasn't like I could do musicals and play the piano, and I couldn't wear my own costumes, I couldn't tell my own stories. It was like I either have to play a character in a musical or I'm a pianist. And I couldn't work out how to put all of that stuff together. And then, in my second year of uni, there was an exchange. You might not know this, actually.
Oh.
No, you probably don't, actually. In my second year of uni, my school had an exchange with Ernst Busch in Berlin. And the exchange was a dance course, but I wanted to come to Berlin. So I studied for 3 months contemporary dance at Ernst Busch. So I did like 3 months here doing dance at Ernst Busch, and I was 19. And that's when I went for the first time to TP, and I saw Tim Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
You know who he is?
Yeah.
I saw him, and I was like, whoa. Now I'm understanding there's this genre where he's like a singer, not drag musician, storyteller. And I was like, in England, this didn't exist because he crossed all of those borders. So I thought, this genre of cabaret is a German thing. And in England, it doesn't exist. It's either a drag queen, a comedian, a stand-up, or a musical theatre person. So that's why I came to Berlin, because cabaret for me was like a place where suddenly I was like, oh, in Berlin, apparently no one's going to label me, like, because I'm not a drag queen, but I'm also obviously this. I'm a good musician, but I'm also not only a pianist, I'm also a comedian, except I don't think I'm very funny, but people book me to be funny. You know? And I also don't think I'm a musical theatre performer, but I also sing musical theatre songs. And I thought, oh, in Berlin I can do it. Whereas in England I couldn't, which is why I ended up here. And basically the first person, or one of the first people I met was you.
Yes.
Elsa Edelstedt. Because Elsa, you can talk about yourself now, but I met you pretty much at the beginning when I was doing Fish and Whips.
Yeah. When again was that? Like
2010.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
And that was a small cabaret and a comedy club, right? And you came along and introduced me to a whole world in Berlin of like what you can talk about now, 1920s cabaret and parties and shows and all of that.
Yeah, actually, the night we met, I remember vaguely. It was at the Bessie Club, which is not existing anymore. Everybody is still dreaming about it.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah.
And you were introduced to me by Lady Lou, and me and her were doing together with us, among other people, La Fête Fatale, which was a burlesque party, actually. And I, at that time, had already started my 1920s event, which is Bohème Sauvage, and it's basically meant to be an homage to the nightlife of the Weimar era, 1920s Berlin. And I started this pretty much 18 years ago.
Was it?
Yes.
Wow, well done.
And
Amazing.
that's why this year, in May 25, we will have the 18 years anniversary where you will be hosting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and of course, when I started this, the whole 20s thing, it was a little bit earlier, even when I did my private 20s salons. I was 24 2004, I think. And I did it in my own flat, and I invited all my friends who were a little bit more weird or special, and lots of role play people like LARP people, live acting role game people, and actors, and any kinds of people. And I said, I want to do this 1920s salon at my house. I was before reading a little bit about salon culture, and the original salon culture is more originally in Berlin in the turn of the century and earlier. But then in the 20s, there was still some salons, and there was one by Betty Stern. I read about it somewhere randomly, and I wanted to have this salon. And then I thought, okay, it's probably easier to do it, play this thing in the 20s than earlier because of the costumes, because 20s is the first time when people were wearing similar or like, I mean, the clothes from before that is, you couldn't wear that on the street nowadays.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. So we were all really young. And 2 years later, I started this public event, Bohème Sauvage.
Because what's the salon? It means, what is it? If people don't know, like
it was,
8 people at home?
No, it was at my house, and it was from 50 to up to 60 or 70 people. And it was called Salon Edelstahl because at that time I had already put on this name, Else Edelstahl, which was just meant to be for this one night.
Really?
Originally,
oh
yes.
my gosh. Exactly.
Yeah, now 18 years later, or 20 years later, actually. The first Salon Edelstahl happened in March, 20 years ago at my house. And I had like old-fashioned, like vintage and antique furniture there already, and fabrics on the wall and big mirrors and everything. It was not all originally 20s, but it was just old looking. And it was a lot like all my friends, they had to prepare something. Everyone had a different name and had a different job, and had to read themselves into, like, had to make some research about the time and think about their own character. So it was a mix of a party and role game, actually, but there was no strict rules. And at midnight, we opened the Absinthe Bar, and then the dancing and everything started. But before that, we had lectures or little Kleinkunst acts, like music, like people playing music, and also talking about historical things that was happening at that time. Actually, we played on exactly the date, 80 years ago. So the first one was in 1924. And there was, for example, the first IFA, the International Funkausstellung, where it was all about radios and this kind of stuff. And the Funkturm had just was just opened, built and opened. And we had cinema, like magazines about what's on the movies right now. And we're talking about the movies that were just on in that week.
Yeah.
And we had all kinds of artists actually, doing some little acts.
Yeah.
And also scientific, like a mathematician who was talking about the Neue Logik in mathematics, which was a new thing in mathematics in the 20s.
Cool. Yeah.
Nobody understood what it was, but it was funny anyway. Yeah, and that's how it all started. Like,
why did
very
you do
naive.
So just because you're interested,
question.
I never asked you. I don't even know why you came up with in the first place of wanting to do this. But,
That's a good question.
And you were young.
I was young, yes, but I already started medieval sword fighting when I was 14.
Okay.
I became a goth girl in that time. So I was already somehow, I mean, that was looking back on the 80s, but I had this medieval thing. And then a little bit later, I started Rococo, Baroque dancing and costuming and all this stuff. So I was dancing minuet, and I had these super big costumes, wigs and stuff.
Really?
And that was all before I was 18, because when I was 18, I moved to Berlin, and then I stopped all this. I mean, no, that's not true. I went on a little bit, actually, more professional, even performing at this Baroque balls and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And Venetian balls and all these kinds of things. And and then, so I always had this something about history. I was always interested in history, but also interested in making this alive again and have an entertaining factor, or like, actually, I was and also organizing things. So there was a lot of things coming together.
That makes sense, though. That's makes sense so well.
It's funny because my mom always says when I had my birthday parties as a kid, I was like weeks before I started planning everything to the last detail, and then I was sick on the day. Like everyone was there, and then I had so much headache.
Really?
No, but that's what she says. It's not true, really. I think it happened just once that I had this headache. But I think there's a lot of things that come together. And with the 1920s Salon Edelstahl, how it started was basically really just because I thought if I invite all my friends, they need to wear something. And you can't do that in the Rococo time or 19th century style because nobody has these costumes. So 20s was just the easiest. And at that time, I started myself. I had lots of cliche ideas in my head, of course, and also the cabaret was a thing, or cabaret, as we say. And I had all these cliche ideas in my head, but then I was making lots of research. I went to the library and I got all the music and the literature and everything. And then I was like, wow, I thought, wow, and I'm in Berlin. And here it's where everything happened. And at that time in Berlin, it wasn't very common, or, I mean, it wasn't a big thing. Now it is because of many things, because of my parties and also the TV series Babylon Berlin. And I think Berlin was really still busy with all, I mean, there's so many things happened here, and it was still busy with all the East-West wall coming down and all this historical stuff. And if you had tourists in Berlin, they were more about the wall and the East-West thing, and maybe a little bit about Frederick the Great, Prussia, and all this, because that was a huge kingdom at that time in the 18th century. But the 20s were completely not, like, the Berliners were not aware of the 20s history and how much impact it had, and how also in other countries, you will probably talk about that later, the idea of the Weimar era, we don't even call it the Weimar era. I mean, we say Weimarer Republik, but we say the 1920s, the golden 20s, which is something you can discuss about. But nobody was really aware of that. There was Max Rabe, who was already on with singing songs from the 20s, and a few other artists and singers. But
what year was it when you made then the Salon public, like a Baume Sauvage public?
That was 2006.
And that's where there wasn't much, that wasn't existing much. There weren't many then parties, 1920s
Nothing.
Parties.
No.
It was really just yours.
No, there was nothing like that.
It's hard to believe that now.
It was not, there was nothing like that. When I tried to, like, sometimes I really had to explain to people what it is, a 1920s party. They had no idea. And also at that time, there was 2 burlesque performers in Berlin. And now we have, I don't know, 200 or something. And it was, for me, interesting to do this research. And what I found out as well is that in the 70s, actually, there was some time when there was 20s parties.
Really?
Yeah, probably because of the Gatsby movie with Robert Redford from that time, and the Cabaret movie. In New York, maybe not so much in Berlin, but in New York and somewhere else was 20s parties as a motto party theme. But
so where do you think the revival that we are living right now, so the reason why we all can work and live through this revival, let's call it like that, where do you think it's that coming from? I
think there's many things, like the first years when I started in 2006, it took another 5, 6, 7 years until it was not so much underground anymore. Because when I started the party, it was totally subcultural and underground. And all the people were in my age as well. Nowadays, they are from 18 to 80, and it's very well known. And there's, like, anyone who's interested can go to this party. And lots of people are aware of what it is. But at that time, I remember when the American or Australian American Great Gatsby movie with Leonardo DiCaprio came out. That made a big step.
That's true.
that was like, whoa, okay. And now, and then, oh, and another thing was, when was that? The bank crisis. There was some financial crisis. And that was also interesting when the press came and they were all referring to the 29 to 1929, when we had the international crisis with inflation and all this.
Yeah.
So slowly people started to become more aware of, and now as we have the 100 years later, like from since
No, that's true.
2020 basically is, and I mean we always talk about the 20s, but it's originally of course the time between the two world wars, so 18 to 30 basically, or beginning of 33 or late 32. That's the Weimar era, the Weimarer Republik. And it really, I don't know why, and really because I'm so much inside the whole thing, so I don't have an objective view on how it happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I was, because I'm building up my whole business on it, and I was just so lucky. I
Yeah.
mean,
And how
to
big?
just start this out of some weird idea.
Well, how big is it now? Because it's not an underground party anymore. Bone Sauvage is like, I mean, you can quickly say, what is it? It goes every
We have up
month
to 1,000 people sometimes in
at
Cologne.
one party.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, going from a salon with 80 to now 1,000 people.
Yes.
And the party plays in
Yeah.
different cities like twice a month.
In
Oh.
Berlin we have it like 8 or 9 times a year, and then in Hamburg and Cologne 2 or 3 times.
It's massive.
Yeah, and
Massive.
we
It's amazing.
went to Athens together.
Exactly. It is that. It's true.
That was in 2010
Yeah.
when you were hosting it.
Yeah.
And that was, we were invited there by a city magazine basically.
Yeah. Word of
They
mouth.
got sponsored. It got sponsored, and but that was an invitation. So,
Yeah.
and then we also were in Vienna and Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And Switzerland really, and that doesn't go on anymore because my partners there, they got kids and stuff, so they got too busy, and I'm too busy to go on with that. But the first one in Zurich was at the original Cabaret Voltaire. Cabaret Voltaire, you know.
Ooh, yeah. So
Where
do.
Dada started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice because actually all of us link through Bone Sauvage. I've hosted it. Marta's hosted it. I think you've hosted it too, right?
No, not hosted.
But you've at least
But I've performed.
you've performed there. So it, in some ways, for cabaret, also in Germany, it also gives people that come here a chance to perform, and it's like quite a big institution, really, when it comes to Germany cabaret, right? It's amazing. I mean, we're all there because of that. We all did it, you know. And whether people think too much about cabaret or not, it's still a party, and it's fun, and there's show acts, you know, which for me is cabaret. It's amazing. They've done it. And it's so cool. Because also,
Yeah.
first of all, involvement with Bone Sauvage, you performed there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what were you doing? And in general, what are you doing? I know, but what are your thoughts about cabaret and yourself as an amazing performer and a huge reputation now?
I mean, for me, cabaret, I never wanted to be a cabaret performer. I just kind of fell into it. I wanted to be a film actor, but I was quite rubbish at it, actually. So I was in London at the time, so this was a big explosion of burlesque and variety.
What year was this?
This was the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
So I started in 2006, and there was an absolute explosion of variety shows. So I kind of ended up in there. This is the MySpace here as well.
Yeah.
And I think what cabaret gave me, I knew nothing of the genre, so I really learned everything as I went along. But it was a really open genre that anyone can try out anything. I think that's one of the things I like about cabaret. And I think when we talk about cabaret, it's changed, it's merged so much now. It's variety, it's everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a specific. You get different cabaret shows, of course, but it's really blended with a lot of other subcultures and neo burlesque. So I was really lucky to slip into this little world and was accepted with open arms. So I really used these early years just to try out, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of putting on some makeup and just clowning around stage. So my early performances were crazy slapstick, absurd
Oh, cool.
humor.
Um,
Nothing to what I do now. So it's
Oh,
a
really?
big.
Was your image very different? I want.
The white makeup was always the basis. I
Mhm.
mean, in the beginning, I painted my face with my fingers.
Really?
Yes, and I'm still terrible. This is why I have a veil on. This is still hide cracks. But I used to paint my face because
Yeah.
I come from a painting background.
Ah.
So in the beginning, it was just I didn't know what I was doing. I was just going, and people just kept booking. I was in a duo.
I know.
Yeah. So people just kept booking us. I'm like, oh, okay. So then it went to the next thing. So every show led to another opportunity. And then you started to invest more in costumes. And so that was kind of the early days.
Were you singing? Also.
We were singing, we had puppets, we made our sets cardboard. It's just crazy. I mean, I find the odd photo on Facebook now and I'm like,
Oh, really?
delete. So it was really, so I was more interested in vaudeville and circus aesthetics in that early days. So it wasn't really until, well, it was a few years before I moved here that I started becoming more interested in kind of the 20s aesthetic of Berlin, this kind of dark, kind of brooding Marlene Dietrich kind of way. So, and with cabaret, it's as I mentioned, it's given me the opportunity to really grow and find out who I want to be, because you can be anyone. I think there's a space for anyone.
Yeah, that's a point, right?
It really is a genre where you can
That's it.
be anything. And the rule of vaudeville was, as long as it's entertainment, you have an act. So
Oh, really?
yes,
Cool.
yes. There was a manual how to get into vaudeville. I printed out the whole thing of all the things you can do. And it's the most dangerous, craziest thing. You can find it online.
What is it like?
People were like, so if you wanted to eat glass, no training required, you can just do it. And so it was all this, because when vaudeville,
Because what's vaudeville again?
I mean, if we talk about North American vaudeville, it's when it's part of the industrialization and when a lot of people from the countryside would move to New York. So there was this entertainment boom.
Okay.
So they had all these theaters and palaces open, and they would have 24-hour vaudeville where they would just have show after show after show, and you just go
That's
in.
cool.
So it was hardcore.
And
Yeah.
that was early 19th
This was
century.
early 1900s. I mean, it
Okay.
started at the end of the 1800s, and then obviously when talkies came in, a lot of vaudeville performers couldn't make the transition into speaking parts, and a lot of them sold their acts. So they would have an act that they would do their whole lives and travel on trains or whatever. So it's very similar to what I was doing in the 2000s, just going to different countries. You unpack your suitcase, you do your act, and you leave the next day. So, so I think that's what happened to cabaret when I started, and it's still evolving. I think it's an ever evolving genre.
Because then you started, I don't know when this was, because I remember playing with you for some BBC documentaries I've never seen. I think that
You haven't seen it?
I've never seen it. No,
I'll send you
I
the
need to
link.
put it in
It's
my
on
trailer.
YouTube.
Yeah,
You should.
it was that was at the beginning stages of Cabaret de Namelos.
It was very early when we started. So Elsa and I we finished a show last year.
Oh.
This project together called Cabaret de Namelos and Cabaret
Right.
the Nameless, which for me was not a cabaret in the traditional sense. I wanted to create, it's a cabaret within a cabaret,
Okay.
but it's not. So it has a lot of components to it, and which would take a whole nother hour to explain. But I wanted to create something that wasn't the traditional cabaret show, because up until then I just got bored, because you would go in, you do your 3 minutes and you're off.
Yeah. Okay.
So with my show, I wanted to create a world and really like chip away at it and really perfect it. And I think what we did last year, it was really beautiful as a stage show, how we finished it off.
You did, exactly. You created this whole, yes, you can talk about cabaret breaking down the fourth wall, but you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the feeling that you managed to like reinvent the wheel a bit, because you made, it was almost like being an immersive inside a cabaret, but you're also watching a cabaret show.
Yeah, it's a lot, actually. It's very hard to pinpoint what it is, because in the beginning of the show, people were just calling it a burlesque show or cabaret show. And I was really like, no, it's not a burlesque show. I really wanted to distinguish what this was going to be. And I think what made it special is, again, I think as I also tapped into this niche market of creating this party, also we came at the right time. There wasn't anything like this show, and it
Nothing.
focuses on a group of people inside a cabaret and their story.
Ah, cool.
So there's performance art and there's transitions. It's like blends into the next. It's almost like memories from the past. So music and lights and all these things were very specific components that I obsessively worked on. But it paid off in the end, and it gave people a very special kind of experience, which for me at that point is what I was looking for, because I was just really getting bored with what I was doing.
It really took off, though.
It
no?
really did. So to come back to your question, the BBC, they came in 2017. So it was, I think we were
Okay.
2 shows in when they and CNN came
Oh, really?
knocking
Cool.
on our
Well
doors. So
done.
it really took off very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was very different and strange. And yeah, I don't think there'll be anything like that again. I mean, it took a lot of work.
Yeah, you could see that. I mean, in a good way, but you could see the
It was
detail
a
of the
lot
work.
of work. And
It wasn't thrown together.
no. And I think that was kind of, to come back to cabaret, that's kind of my issue sometimes, where cabaret can be very thrown together. And it can be fun, but I came to the point where it wasn't for me anymore, where you would stand on stage and hope your music plays, hope there's a light. You know, it came to that point where that wasn't for me anymore, because I was really serious about what I wanted to present.
Yeah.
And I want people to sit down and watch.
Yeah.
And up until then, I was performing in fetish shows and whatever, and people were just having sex as I'm getting to the stage, or the lights would go off. And I was kind of just like, no, this is not for me. I want to have a seated theater show.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we got to in the end.
Totally understand that. And it still fits within cabaret, the genre,
It
but it's
still
a
does.
staged show. Yeah.
It is a stage show, but it still deals with a cabaret or a Nachtlokal or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it has elements of a lot of things. So, and with the name, people just assume it's a cabaret,
Yeah.
but again, it's open for interpretation.
Then you have you as the face of it to me. You know, people get the image, you know.
Yeah, the white, scary face, yes.
But then I don't know this actually, because then what happened with Babylon Berlin and this role that was created as the kind of hostess of the venue?
It's very weird. So
What's this?
I met Henk Handlüchten.
Handlüchten.
Lüchten.
Yeah.
Excuse my German. Elsa introduced us at a party, and I think at that point they were thinking of putting in a scene in Babylon, and then they discovered us, and I think that's how they got in contact with you.
Yeah.
So we met, and within minutes, Henk offered me a role,
Amazing.
and I kind of
It's
just.
funny. Cool.
And he's like, "Oh, I have a role that's perfect for you. What do you think?" And I'm like, "I have to think about it." Yes.
Yeah.
And he just said, "I want this." And so I
What
had
you were.
So I had the red hair. I had like a little Norma Desmond
Cigarette.
holder, and I just want that.
Yeah.
So they basically took that character from the cabaret and just put it into Babylon Berlin under the name of Edwina Morel.
Yeah.
Ask.
Uh-huh.
But as this character,
But that character was you. You'd created
Right.
this character. Well, like Lepustrat
right.
Yeah.
had invented this role.
right. And then in season 4, they
Cool.
actually had a Cabaret de Namelösen scene.
Ah, really?
Actually, with
I didn't even know this.
Yes,
Yes.
but
it's more the original.
from the original, and that
Yeah.
was in the 20s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the original Cabaret de Namelösen did exist from
Yeah. I
1926. And the original version was much more of a kind of talent show where you just go on, and it didn't matter if you were good or not.
That's what I think of vaudeville, actually. I don't know.
It was actually more about that.
It was
Okay.
more. It was
trash
about really just humiliating people, and
Yeah.
and it's funny. It really echoes today as well. And people would just put
Oh.
themselves on stage for at any cost.
Yeah, but that's not
Everybody-
so nice, right?
No, it's not. But it's when you look at social media today and how people are willing to do anything, and
Right.
each time you have to pay more
Mm-hmm.
to do more and to get attention and get those likes and whatever. So I guess you can compare it to the fact that people back then wanted to be famous at any
Yeah.
cost.
Exactly. That's true, actually.
It's
Yeah.
true.
That's funny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the Babylon Berlin scene, they focus more on that part. So it's a crazy scene. There's a big fight. There's yodeling. There's a giant hand that knocks someone off stage,
Cool.
and and for this, I wore this green costume, and I looked like a leprechaun.
Really?
I looked like the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, but it did have a freak show circusy feel to it. And to get into that, I had to really, I went back to Joel Grey in Cabaret and kind of studied how he did the audience, because I'm a really shy person, and that is not who I am. So in the Cabaret, I'm really closed in, but for that, I had to be a bigger character. So I had to go and study Joel Grey, how he interacted with the cane and everything, and Hank let me change a few lines. But it was great to have this show immortalized in the scene. I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
it's
You
amazing.
invented it.
Yeah.
It's funny, as a naturally shy person, you're saying.
Yeah.
I know that, because I know you.
Yeah.
But obviously people will be surprised, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
It's getting worse.
Really, as you get older, you get more shy.
Yeah. I think Cabaret, what I would also say, Cabaret really brought me out of my shell in the beginning. And now I feel I'm sort of somehow being dragged back into it. And it's funny how your years go and the stakes get higher. I'm getting more and more like, now you have to really deliver. I joined the Mokefti Orchestra last year, and it was a big, it took me like last year to get used to it. And then we went on tour this year. And now it's very comfortable, and I'm much more confident. But yeah,
It's not natural for you necessarily.
no, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, this expectation, and you have to, the bigger the shows get, the more I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I have imposter syndrome all the time. And I'm a really shy person.
Yeah.
It's really hard sometimes to be on stage, because I was never naturally extroverted. And I was always very envious of my fellow cabaret performers who were so loud and, out there. And I'm just like, okay,
Totally.
okay, let me just get through it. So yeah, I struggle a lot with that.
But maybe that's something that links us all, because I'm also shy and
I
quiet.
can totally relate to that.
And that's what
too.
this is what I wanted to say, because we met. I saw you doing a show. I performed with you last week, and on stage you're tearing the room apart, and you're, taking your clothes off, you're singing, you're loud, you've got the room wrapped around your hand. But I haven't known you that long personally. But I realized, you're also quite a shy person.
I'm actually really, really quiet, so I can totally relate to Pustra when, especially the feelings after the show when you gave it all, but then you need twice as long
Yes.
at your house with your
recover.
quietness to come back to yourself.
Yeah.
But still, you kind of enjoy the loudness and the moment, because everything we've done so far to get there. It's the prize we are getting from all of the work and the sacrifice is to be there and to enjoy that moment, which we do. But then we also have to make the balance within ourselves back at home, and it's a wonderful search for this balance.
I don't think it gets easier though. I don't know. I've been doing this.
I was
18
hoping
years
you'd tell
now.
me
Yes.
It doesn't. I think there's certain things that you get accustomed to, but this feeling never goes away. And
Yeah.
I, especially last year, we were in Copenhagen doing the show, and I had knocking knees.
Oh, really?
I never had that in my life.
Well, physically, like,
We were in front of 2,000 people. It was my first time singing Zu Asche, zu Staub. I had 2 days to learn it. I had in-ear mics, which I've never used before, and I was standing there, and my knees just went like this, and my mouth just went. It's like someone threw sand in my mouth. It's the worst feeling.
but did you pull it off? No one would have known, right?
I let's not talk about it. I mean, I got through it, but
No one would know.
it was really, really terrifying, and so I don't know if that. Sometimes it's better, but sometimes it just surprises you. I don't know.
But the good thing about what we do, because it is cabaret, we get to own how we're feeling, I think. I know that's a performer, the way we're dressing if I'm too nervous. I'm like, well, I'm allowed to be too nervous. I'm allowed to talk too quick. I'm allowed to play the piano wrong. I'm allowed to not hit a high note. Whereas if you do musical theatre or classical piano,
Much more.
you can't get it wrong.
Cabaret is very free.
And that's why I love cabaret, because I'm like, you know what, tonight, I'm just going to breathe into how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I might come across as a bit manic. I often do, But I'm like, well, I'd rather go with the feeling of being like, I want to die, and like getting it all wrong, than like having to like play the role in West Side Story, I'd rather sell it.
For sure. I
How did you
especially
feel?
I still perform quite a lot in Zum starken August, this lovely circus burlesque bar.
Explain what it is. How big is it? It's also like a
When it's full house, it hosts up till 75 seated people. Yeah.
and they have shows or what?
Yeah, every Friday and Saturday, and sometimes they also do the Sunday show. And I recently performed the Sunday show after I performed Thursday and Friday and Saturday. I didn't know where my makeup is anymore, in which luggage, but and I was really tired. But somehow I was just riding the wave of this feeling
Yeah.
of all the feelings I had the previous nights, and I really didn't feel it, and I was like, I don't want to go there tonight. But that's where for me, it's these revelation moments every once in a while. Like maybe there is 50 people standing, and it's just a very intimate thing, and I can be myself. I can show them I actually don't want to be there, but I can show it in an entertaining way, and for them it's Sunday as well, and we can have a laugh about it, like you have nothing better to do on a Sunday than to come to the cabaret show. Come on.
And what do you feel like as a performer? You like the intimacy?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was one of the shows in the last couple of years that I really enjoyed the most.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even if I really didn't want to go there, I was like, I'm so tired. Just let me sleep. But I think we had such a very special moment just because I let loose. And that's what we can do as cabaret performers, especially in smaller situations, is just really let loose. There is no, as you say, the big director of the musical say, okay,
no right or wrong.
the sub is already
Yeah.
for next show, you're out.
Yeah.
We are so unique in what we do, and that's something we never should forget. That we are not. There is, of course, other performers that can do now, but we are so unique, each and every one of us. So for everybody, there is a space.
And how did you end up? Because I actually don't know about this. Because you also studied classical violin, or
Yes.
and singing and acting, or what?
No, I never studied acting. Actually, I come from classical music. I studied violin for many years as a kid.
And you couldn't dress like this playing classical violin as a kid, or like you had to like.
Actually, I'm gonna send you some picture. I look
really?
even more ridiculous.
And you look amazing, not ridiculous.
Thank you.
We couldn't dress up playing classical violin, or
I was a punk. I was a punk kid.
Oh, really?
Violin. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But so I studied classical violin until I moved to Berlin. For no specific reason, I moved to Berlin rather than I just wanted to leave my hometown,
Where was this?
counting the border between Italy and Slovenia,
Yeah, right.
which counts 7,000 souls, including chickens.
Oh, really? Oh,
I come from a very small place and still quite conservative, and I always was, the weird one. So when I first came to Berlin, I was like, nobody is looking at me strange.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why many, many people move here, and especially as creative people, we can let it all out, and we are celebrated for that, and not like scanned from head to toe 3 times.
and you could always sing as well.
From early age, I went to the choir and did all of that. Also more in a classical way, but when I moved then to Berlin, I started to play other kinds of music than classical. I started out with a lot of street music with my back then country blues trio. Then
nice.
I moved up to a gypsy swing polka punk band
That's
where I
cool.
was playing violin and started playing at festivals and stuff. But there was always somehow the feeling I want more from this. I was always kind of the youngest by a lot of age difference, the young violin player in the back. And I was, I think I have, and then a pandemic hit. And meanwhile, I studied product design in Potsdam. So I have my bachelor's, my degree in Germany by Gestaltung and so. And I got more and more interested in the intersection of fields, no? One being the music, one being the aesthetics of things, and one being just this designer mentality that I got trained, and somehow all orbitated around the world of burlesque and cabaret in Berlin. I also went regularly to Bassi Club
Oh, yeah?
I am sure I went to some of Elsa's
Yeah, for
parties
sure.
back then without really knowing it. And through the band also, was playing at first burlesque shows, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this women. I was 19 back then, you know. It was
Mhm.
just phew, so much input.
Yeah.
And it's all revolved around that until pandemic hit, and I stood in front of decision. What do I want to pursue next? To go into a very serious designer's career and be in an office and do this kind of work. But my heart and my guts and my soul were daydreaming about being on stage. And I really remember it was one summer between the waves of pandemic. I was back then with my ex-partner singing at in Brandenburg as a rockabilly
Oh, really?
duo. We
Okay.
were having a gig outside, and I was just singing my heart out. And it was like, I want to do this every day,
Oh, nice.
all day. And things kind of developed, and then meeting producers and people who open doors to you and give you an opportunity. Like Elze, for example, I think first contact we had, I was just writing you an email like, "Hi, I would like to."
Oh, really? Oh,
And you embraced me, and like you also other people, and somehow things just developed, and
And now-
here I'm sitting with all of you here.
yeah. And it's gone good for you now, so I'm pleased. Like, I was happy for you. Basically, that's all. Because I saw like you're really up for it, you're going for it.
Thank you
know?
so much. And
It's good.
recently, also a big dream of mine came true. Also with the support of Elze and the Bohème Sauvage, we do have a house band of the party Bohème Sauvage, and that's for me a very important step also for next things, getting more closer to music and to leaving the stage not anymore as much as a host and having this speaking role and connect with the audience, but just doing the thing I can do best,
Yeah.
which is singing and
I was about
being
to
the
say,
character on stage.
exactly, I was about to say stripping, and you don't. But
I do sometimes.
But it's funny about burlesque. We can all talk about it. I think we've all got a lot to say about it. Like,
Yeah.
because I also said, but you're edging the burlesque direction.
Yeah.
But it's like, for all of us, we have a very different, I'm sure, perspective of what burlesque is, because it's like such a wacko, massive genre. And I host lots of burlesque shows, whether I call them cabarets or burlesque shows. You could even say you doing a bit of burlesque in your show. I mean, you book burlesque performers all the time. And you also probably work with a gazillion burlesque performers. I feel like the whole experience of watching a burlesque show is that the audience are allowed to engage with the energy of the performers. I feel like there's no fourth wall, and instead of watching a show, the audience are allowed to feel the energy and respond. I don't know whether it's about nudity. I don't know whether it's about the art of the striptease. I don't know about that. See what you think. For me, it's just really about a performer that's saying, like, take me energy and throw back to me how I'm making you feel. But then you could say it about every performer, I guess. That's also what I do. I guess you have to take your clothes off, no, to do burlesque. Like,
I
what do
mean,
you think?
people do buy the tickets for that.
They want to
I
see.
guess.
Like, what do you think? They want to see nudity, right? Or what? Not necessarily. I don't know.
I don't know what the people want to see. I mean, I think because burlesque is such a wide range of different kinds of what kinds of performers, and I think burlesque is a kind of a part of cabaret, like one
Right.
genre of cabaret maybe.
Mhm.
Basically it's about taking your clothes off and tell a story about it and not be a
That's true.
stripper. So
Okay, that's a
it's
difference.
very, very now I'm missing a word. But yeah, the woman is not just the sex object to the man. It's completely different in this
Yeah,
in
that's
this
true.
field. And I mean, of course, there's a lot of beauty burlesque, which is with the feather fans and the perfect body and all the glitter and glamour, la la la.
Yeah.
We probably all now think this is done and boring for
Yeah,
us,
'cause we
but
know it
it's
well.
still what a lot of people want to see because it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But the more exciting part, I think, is in this political burlesque or big performers or skinny or whatever kinds of performers that are not the perfect beauty body. And they still go there and they have a message. And there's a lot of queer burlesque and grotesque and any kinds of burlesque. And this is also like really free. And
Yeah.
this is, or maybe the neo-burlesque or however. I mean, burlesque was originated, I think, in the 40s, 50s in America.
So it wasn't a 20s thing? Or what?
Not really. I mean, in the 20s, for example, in Berlin, we call it Schönheitstanz, which was a little bit like burlesque, but they didn't have the pasties on their nipples. And this is a weird thing. I don't know why they all have this pasties on the nipples. It's everywhere in burlesque. They have the pasties on the nipples. And I think, why don't they free the nipples? I mean, this is so weird, to me at least.
Yeah. I don't know why.
The pasties came in later.
But
In
I
the
think it was
60s.
one specific club where they wanted to still have the art form of this kind of dancing, but they weren't allowed to show full nudity.
yeah.
So,
However,
yeah,
it's like
it's one chance.
But
that
it's stuck then forever.
Yeah. It's
But something like burlesque also has gone through such a change, and
Yeah, for sure.
and I think when it came, like in the 2000s or before,
90s in America.
Dirty Martini was already doing it, so
back,
it really
yeah.
just it did morph into, like, as I said earlier, variety and cabaret just all became. It kind of fell under burlesque because there was quite a few years which burlesque was where it was reigning supreme. So everything else came under that.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
So I did many burlesque shows as a variety act. So the men would be the filler acts, and the focus would be on the female stripping. And I think it's since evolved, as I also said, into many different kind of sub genres. Right now, I feel there's a bit of a dip
Oh, really?
in it. There's not so many shows going. Maybe it's to do with COVID. I think a lot of shows didn't recover. A lot of performers moved on. A lot of performers gave up. So when I look at performers that started with me, people like Vicky Butterfly, we're still kind of hanging on with our fingernails. But a lot of performers have moved on to other things, and there's always new waves of performers coming in. So
Absolutely,
right
yeah.
now, I don't know. If I look at a burlesque bill, I don't recognize any names.
Yeah.
And so I think there's still a market for it,
Yeah.
but I think we're seeing a bit of a slump. Hopefully it will kind of pick up again. There's not much work in general going around, so you have to really create your own.
But that's also like cabaret and all of these art forms, right?
Sure, you have to reinvent. As I said, when we were having a cigarette, it's like cabaret is like the cockroaches of
Yes.
of entertainment. That they'll be there till the very end.
Yeah.
And I think it's a genre that keeps reinventing itself.
Yeah. I remember the very successful performer I was doing an internship with in Manhattan, and he'd really done well. And he was saying, but also, Jack, you just have to realize that you'll never be better than a diamond toilet seat. That's what he said about cabaret. He was like, you'll never be better than a diamond toilet seat. And he had a big flat in Manhattan, but he was like, you'll never be more than a toilet seat in cabaret, But I guess it's still the case, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with cabaret, especially for myself. I think it's the type of genre that if you do and you're happy, it kind of it doesn't go anywhere. You kind of just repeat and you just kind of go. So it depends what your end vision for yourself is, where you want to end up as a performer. So I think it can lend itself that it can be quite repetitive, and it can be, unless you elevate yourself, you can kind of just be stuck in this kind of just do show by show by show. And I did that for years, and it's okay, and a lot of people enjoy it. So it just depends what you want, where you envision yourself at the end.
Totally.
So I always wanted to level up, as I say. So it took a long time, but I couldn't have done it without cabaret.
Yeah.
I learned everything on the job.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I remember thinking about 2 years ago, I was like so tired of what I'm doing here in Berlin. I also got stuck in a niche of doing the same thing since you've all met me. To be honest, wearing this costume, but I've grown to love it again. But like singing the same songs, all the songs,
Every night.
the same songs, and
yeah.
trying to be tell the same stories, just talking about dildos and airports, and And I was like, I need to
That's what I
progress
mean.
artistically,
Yeah,
personally.
you kind of you get to a level and then you don't progress.
Yeah,
That's what I've found, and that's why when I moved here, I wanted to break away from that.
and you're not even rich from being in that situation. It's not even like you can think, well, at least I'm making this much money.
No.
It's like, well, yeah, maybe I'm lucky to be comfortable, but you're not like exactly swimming in it.
No, there's no money in cabaret really, unless you're at the Crazy Horse or in Vegas or whatever. But
Yeah, but you also have to think about what's the definition of cabaret now, because we talked about it earlier.
I think the lines are so blurred.
The cabaret, the German cabaret
Yeah.
is a different thing than what we are talking about cabaret and all the
Yeah.
shows that we do and where we, and the German cabaret, there is many artists who really live from that, and they're not super rich, of course, but they're stars of the German cabaret scene, like as you mentioned, Tim Fischer, for example, and other. Yeah, it's usually more about singing and or talking, which is nowadays sometimes maybe stand-up comedian stuff.
Yeah.
And now what we are talking about, the cabaret, it's all about performing. But
Yeah, right.
in the original sense, it was more about speaking and
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
Not so much. I mean, there was performances in between, like dancing and weird stuff. Like as we go to the 20s, there was a big variety of different kinds of performance in the cabaret scene, from singing and talking to Valeska Gerd grotesque dancing.
Yeah.
And it also in the 20s already made a little change, like from the early 20s when it started to the late 20s when it became a more erotic thing with naked dancing and all this.
Yeah, I really think
there's,
cabaret Berlin, we could really safely credit Berlin to really put cabaret on the map
For what?
it was then and what we think of it now. Obviously, it has changed a lot, but I think really during those interwar years in Berlin, the cabaret was kind of really born, even though it was around before that. And I think that's where a lot of our impressions of it comes from. And when we talk about the Liza Minnelli film, a lot of people I speak to, they move to Berlin after they've seen this film.
Definitely. Right.
And then they're like, oh, it's nothing like that.
Exactly.
So I still think when I think about cabaret, I would think about Berlin.
Yeah.
Even though it was technically a French invention. But even before that, there were sort of something similar going on.
Yeah. In Berlin before, it was called cabaret. It was more the tingle-tangle, which is a little bit also like vaudeville style and
A lot of satire.
in the turn of the
right.
century, like from the siècle, when in Paris the cabaret French thing started with Le Chat Noir,
Yeah, right.
and then it came over to Berlin in the turn of the century actually, and got a little bit bigger in the early 20s.
Yeah.
With some famous cabarets, and they were very political.
Exactly.
There was no nudity in these, and it was, of course, entertaining, but it was very political at that time.
Yeah.
And in this mid, like when the golden 20s, in Anführungsstrichen, started in the mid 20s, that's when it became more also for tourists, because originally it's all in German, of course, and lots of it is, of course, in Berlin accent, and it was not for tourists. But in the mid 20s, when more and more tourists came, it was made easier and with more dancing, with more nudity, and so on. So there was a development in that time already, and so now I lost the Faden.
But that's what talking about German cabaret. Really.
Cabaret,
Exactly.
yes.
That's what I understood, that it was almost a way of like reciting the news to make jokes about
I
it.
think with cabaret,
Yes.
with the K, that it was very specifically political satire, and they which got then banned in late 1930s. That
really?
confranciers were not allowed to say what they want anymore. So
Yes, well, but there's actually also Nazi cabaret,
Yes.
and right-wing
so
cabaret.
they
you
were
know.
approved by the
Ah.
So
But also before, also in the 20s already, there was like politically right cabaret as well, which is quite forgotten when we think about this whole thing.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
think
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
The
it's also
opposite.
liberal and la la la.
Yeah.
But it was there.
Getting distracted by the sparkle.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's definitely. I think, as you said, in the I think it was 1926 that it's after hyperinflation and went away and the economy stabilized. So I think it was 1926 to 29 is supposed to be the golden 20s where the economy was doing well. You had the Tiller girls coming in from the UK. You had all these big variety. So you had your scale from the operas, the ballets, the theaters. Then you have your Wintergarten, you have your Scala. Is it Scala Theatre?
There was a Scala.
Yes, and it goes all the way down to the grubby in a back room,
Basement.
which the thing is,
We
with
know
cabaret, it varies so much what you do, the levels of quality. Like I've performed from in a cellar with a candle up all the way up.
Yeah.
So it really, and it's still the same today.
Yeah.
There's so much variation and quality
Yeah.
of cabarets.
And that's, go on.
Sorry, I have a question. But does it really define the quality of where a performer is at? Or how much is the scenario, the circumstances that make it...
I think as long as you're entertaining, it doesn't matter if you're performing with no lights to people with no teeth. As long as you do a good job, I think that's what matters, and you can brighten up any
But do you find that those shows are good, even in the small rooms?
with people with no teeth.
Exactly. Like, I know in theory
They
that's
can.
nice thing
I've
to
had
say,
my-
but
I've
are
had-
there good?
I've had my best shows in smaller venues that were not so professional, and I enjoyed it much more. I got much more out of it, and people are much more appreciative. So it really depends. It's like the gambit, like the quality really. In vaudeville, there was big time, which was a big theaters. Then there was small time, and there was small time. So small time, if you
that?
perform in small time, it's in the bars and it's in the barn or anywhere that they converted into it in a performing space.
Yeah,
Big time were the big theaters and the movie palaces
I see.
that you wanted to be in. So I there's still a little bit of that today, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a lovely thought to remind us every once in a while that, the circumstances, no? The house has the name, but the performer is still, how do you say? It's not linear, no? I know performers that's in the same night they perform in the cellar and they perform in the big house.
I
with
like
the same
that,
act.
honestly.
Yeah.
I have
And
that
that's
still.
amazing.
And I enjoy that. I also have the big runs and the big varieties now for several years. And I don't think, some people do judge, and I'm like, I don't really care. I'll also do things for free in some small bar, and some people feel like they can't ask me anymore also. And I'm like, I will still do it. You can ask me. You know, if I can get to have the experience with the audience and really have fun and feel more like Jack Woodhead than necessarily I could at some bigger houses where I work, I'm very quick to jump in that back room and have fun because that's what I love. That's why I did this job. Of course, financially, it made sense to do some of the bigger contracts where you work for 6 months and it's the same thing. But often the reason why we're all in this profession is not always evident in those bigger houses. It's when you're actually with the people, having a bit of fun backstage, feeling dirty, right? Putting your makeup on. I bet we've all got places where we've put makeup on, right, where you should not be putting makeup on, right? In some weird, dirty toilet with broken glass and a candle and a needle and a condom and something else.
Yeah.
But I feel quite at home.
And still, this is very often where the new things come from because,
Totally.
most cultural things come from the underground, and this is where we all go. And what we still like, we like the dirt and the subcultural things.
Yeah.
And especially in Berlin, it's a melting pot for this.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And this is the authentic life, and going in a big theater with anonymous audience,
Exactly.
and it's a mass of people. It's commercial. It's nice to pay your rent, but it's not where you really feel what's happening.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a different way of performing. I
Yeah.
mean, it'll be so amazing if, why don't us four turn up in some very small Kneipe and put a show on? People would be like, oh my gosh, look at them. If us four rock up being like, we're going to do it. We don't care. We have no shame. We're going back to what cabaret is. We should. Why not? Let's
do it.
We're doing all the big shows. I think both.
What a taxi.
Yeah, a bit of
Yeah. Should we get a taxi and go for a gin and tonic? What do you think? How does that sound? Gin tonic or Prosecco?
I go for champagne.
Oh, yeah? All right, my dears, let's make a move and go and have a drink.
All right.
Cheers to us and cheers to cabaret.
Yeah.
So much.
Cabaret.
Thank you.